Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Afreilich and Chanukah. Lili Nishmasim Mirosi Rusbas Mordechai. Sponsored by the Freeman and Sherman families, Mazel Tov. In honor of the engagement of the children Shoshan and Akiva, may the wedding take place B'Shal Toivo Mutzlachas in the merit and memory of Menachem Mendel ben Simcha. This is from Kalman from the Five Downs. Afreilich and Chanukah, Chag Sameach, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yeshua, the guys that work so hard every day and all night to make it happen every day in the ganze Chabura. Yishkoyach, Reb Kalman. Shiur Greenfield from Green Star Electrical Contracting, Yossi Klein from Superior Plumbing, Muncie. Rabbi Sai, today is the 7th and final day of Tum and Tahara, and it's a great treat. It's a very, very easy sugya today. I have my own little Torah on the sugya. What's going on, Eli? I don't know what that means. I have no idea. Sound is no good. It's good. He's saying it's good. Oh, YouTube is off. Smudged. It's not smudged.
You have a beautiful song to you. I can't explain other than the fact that you're...
How's it now? Is it better?
Beautiful.
Okay. I have a theory. I haven't seen this anywhere. I hope I'm not saying shtiyot completely. But we just went through 6 days of intensive Tum and Tahara. And it just seems to me that rather than the Gemara, the Ravina and Rav Ashi saying, Rabbi said, let's do Chazara, the Gemara in its own distinct way does a Chazara for us. Goes through the Sugya, all the things that we learned. So today is going to be very, very familiar already. We're going to just go through things that we learned. A couple of things in the beginning, maybe new. Here's an email from Kalman. In the memory of Menachem Mendel ben Simcha, Chag Sameach, Freilich Chanukah, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Moshe, for the newsletter. Rabbi Yosef staying up all night, waiting for my sponsorship notes. Binyamin from Cedars, is he on today? What's going on? I haven't seen him in a while. He's on. Wow. And the Gans Chabura, that slave away, I'm not making this up. He wrote, Rabbi Binyamin of Cedarhurst, to make it all work. Love you all, my MDY family. Regards, Kalman of the Five Towns. This is from Jay Spitzer. Yesterday's daf was sponsored in memory of Alan Braverman, Olav Shalom. Although Alan was 6 years younger than me, this is from Jay Spitzer from Canada. Remember Jay? I remember him from the night cheer. I thought maybe he's gone, but I guess he's still watching. Baruch Hashem. That's Mishpachas here. He's younger than me, but I remember him well. We both lived in the same neighborhood in Montreal and davened at the same shul. Our families were quite close. My younger brother Avi was Alan's age, and they remained friends into the adult years. Alan's a great all-around kid. You know the way older brothers find their younger siblings' friends annoying? Alan did not have that effect. He was quick. He was a quick study with a sharp wit and gave the impression of being more mature than many of his contemporaries. Hearing his name yesterday transported me back to my youth. It's hard to believe that he's gone for 4 years. May his neshama have an aliyah. Yesterday I asked Avi, he was talking about planes in the middle of shiur. I asked him what's going on. He explained to me, he said a beautiful maisa. This is what he wanted to say. He said that Alan had a dream of flying on a private jet. So they decided, it was the end of his life, he was very sick, and they decided to ask this guy, Binyamin Klein from Chicago. He owns a private jet. He owns a couple now. So they called him up and they said, there's a guy in Eretz Yisrael. The kitzur, what happened was, this Binyamin Schwartz couldn't fly his plane into Israel, but he paid a guy that had a private jet in Eretz Yisrael to fly the whole mishpacha, everybody, down Teilat, take care of them, bring them back. Stam, a guy has no shaykhs to anything, decided to do chesed. That was his point. The chesed of somebody else, and it was a beautiful story at the end of the day. I just cut him off. I feel bad. Do we have time for another one? Here, this guy has a taina on me. He's a great guy, but he has some tainas. I like tainas. There's Rebelli, long-time watcher, first-time emailer. I'd like to thank you. No, I'm obligated to thank you for helping me get through Eruvin. I was extremely worried that I won't be able to continue keeping up with the Daf Yomi, and then I found you. You immediately eased my mind, and I knew that you were the answer to my fears. I have the pleasure of teaching together with your chashuv aunt, Rebbe Tzimtzerach Joslowski, here in Flatbush. Flatbush. There's a couple people here that went to Flatbush. She has a tangible hashpah on her Talmidas and gives over Torah with such sweetness and love. I can tell you're related. My kids love hearing your good morning, Rabbi Isai, evening as they sit down to learn the daf. And then he goes, I initially thought that you scream good morning instead of hello or shalom aleichem in order to avoid the issue of greeting people before you daven, as per Simon 89 in Shulchan Aruch. However, it was strange to see that you have a Shmooze segment post shiur each day. Today I finally had my answer when you told over the story of Chavrusa with the rooster. You probably daven early before the shiur. Quite unlikely, since the shiur is so early in the morning. Although there is a minyan in our base medrash. If you want to be l'dan l'kavschos, in MDY there's a minyan and they keep on going. Fine. I'm assuming that you rely on the fact they have a set minyan later on that will prevent you from getting carried away and forgetting to daven. And since it's Zikr Rab and the Shmoozing is part of our Batzas Torah, either way, thank you again for bringing the Gemara to life and community. So listen, if he has Amichai Gez, aka Anonymous, if he has a taina, I have to Avisim Nikim. Listen, what about the fact that I stop in the middle of shiur and I give a joke? I say over Maisa. We talk about jets. Bitula Zuhu Kiyuma. This is part of our learning. This is what the Olam wants. This is what they need. And after shiur, it's Torah just like anything else. This is what the Olam wants. When I don't go on to Zoom afterwards, then the Olam disappears. This is part of the shiur. The Zoom after is part of the shiur. That is what I'm saying. Take it to the Rav. Rabbi Yisai, here we go. Daf Chaf, the final daf. I know you guys are going to miss this, just like we miss Eruvin. This is Tumen Tahira. Daf Chaf, Amud Aleph. 2 lines down. So, yesterday we were discussing if a person checks an animal based on meat and he finds a needle inside the meat is tamei, his hands and the knife are tahar. Says the Gemara, V'abasar tamei, V'abasar this kasher b'mai. The Shas's favorite topic. Again, check it out. We'll figure it out by the end of Shas. But how did we make this piece of meat mukhshir l'kabel tuma? Every piece of food that gets tuma needs a hechsher tuma. You have to pour water on it. You have to something. Says the Gemara, so maybe you'll tell me, as you shechting the animal, the blood squirts out of the vein and touches the neck, the meat around the neck, and that's all you need. You need 1 drop of liquid touching the entire giant animal. That's enough to make the animal susceptible to tumah. So you're starting to see over here that the Gemara is doing a little bit of a chazara. We learned this concept, and we're repeating so that we have it klar. Right? Instead of Ravina, Rabbi say, stop here, do 2 days of Chazara. I'm going to stick it in gently. I'm going to ask a little kasha that's not so shver. We're going to put in all these sugyas. That what? We learned that blood that doesn't spill on the floor. Why doesn't it spill on the floor? Because you got to catch the blood with a cup, with a kli, not like this, a nice kli, shares. So it's not tishbachenu kamayim. It's not like water. Only water has the ability to be machshel l'kabel tumah. You sprinkle it on the meat, poof, then the meat can become tummy. But blood not. What about the damatamtis? That's not blood, we said. So therefore, blood doesn't have the ability to be machshir. You know that blood is one of the 7 mashkim. But not this blood in the Beis HaMikdash. Blood in the Beis HaMikdash you have to catch in a kli. So what are you going to tell me? There's 2 liquids in the butcher area of the Beis HaMikdash. There's blood and there's water. So maybe it's the water. What's dachan? Dachan we learned is a lashon of tahar. Not only are they tahar, the water doesn't become tameh or doesn't have the ability to impart tuma, but it doesn't even have the ability to make anything else mukhshir lekabel tuma. So there's a beautiful chinuch here, but before we go to the chinuch, you have to see Rashi here. Okay, let's go one more line. Ve'elo, the iskasher b'chibas hakodesh. The Gemara tells us a brand new concept that we didn't have yet in Shas, and that's called chibas hakodesh, the love of kedusha. Until now, we had food that's not susceptible to tumah, but because of chibas hakodesh, the tremendous love that we have for the mitzvah of kachim, it turns it into food. What's the pshat? So Rashi says over here, Rashi says, "Chibas hakodesh mishavelo oichel lekabule tuma." It creates food. So the chinuch explains it beautifully. He says, we think that it's a modern day thing that you have to wash an apple before you eat it, and you have to cleanliness. No, it's in the Torah. The Torah says before you eat food, clean it. Make sure it's proper before it goes into your mouth. Before you clean it, before you put water on it, it's not food. That's what the Torah tells us. The chinuch says this. It's not clean. But in the Beis HaMikdash, since we have chibas hakodesh, the Torah says, you know what? We're going to go away with that. We're going to do away with that rule. We don't need that rule. It's food without that proper cleaning because we love it so much. We're going to press it before we even clean it. Ve'elo, this kash b'chibas hakodesh. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. That's beautiful pshat. That's great if you want to say that this meat is pasul. Okay. You're using some sort of outside chinuch kind of svara, good. But you're going to tell me that it's so mushal kabel tumah that it even has enough ability to give over tumah to something else? And if yes, okay, maybe yes. Who told you not? Well then, if that's the case, tivshoit deboy rish lakish. Then you mimanavshach. If that's the case, that's so tamei, then we have an answer to Rish Lakish's question. That what? Tzarit shel menachos. When we were learning menachos, I had the privilege to make a mincha in the middle of shiur. Brought in flour, brought in oil, and started mixing it. Now what happens is, it's gooey, I didn't even know how they do it, but you have all these clumps. And if you open up the clump, you'll see the oil didn't reach every single grain of flour. So Rish Lakish asked the question, what happens to a clump? Is it that tamei because it didn't get wet? So over here, you're telling me that it should be, according to what we just said, chibas hakodesh. It should be so tamei that it can even make a rishon and a sheni. So you see not. From the fact that Rish Lakish didn't know, we don't say that. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Shmuel. What's going on here? We had a shlomim. A shlomim is unique, that you get to eat a lot of the meat. In order, Rashi explains, in order to remove the hide of the animal, what they did was they used to give it a lot of water to drink, and that removed the hide easier. We learned that a lot in Zvachim. He just came back from the river, the animal just finished drinking, and it's dripping wet. And that water from the river, not from the Beis Midbachaya, not from the butcher area, but from outside of the Beis HaMikdash, that went and touched the neck of the animal or whatever part of the animal, poof, the whole animal becomes susceptible to tumah now, and that's why if there's a needle in the animal, the whole animal is tumah. So we have to see Rashi. Beautiful Rashi here. 2 lines before it gets wide. Take a look, try to find it. I want to tell you a maisa from Reb Shalom Shvadron. Reb Shalom Shvadron, the famous Maggid Yerushalayim. Reb Pesach Kron has all these books, the Maggid speaks. Reb Shalom Shvadron says a maisa. My brother, every time I go into my brother's car, that's all I hear is Reb Shalom Shvadron in Yiddish, screaming. He says a maisa. He was walking in Yerushalayim, and he sees a kid fly off his bike, hit his head in the concrete, and he's crying. So he runs over to the kid, and he starts consoling the kid. Don't worry about it. That comes out the Baba. He's walking down, she says, Rebbe, Daigenisht, what are you so worried about? He'll live, he'll make it this chasana. What are you so worried? And she walks over to the kid, and she takes a look at the kid to see if he's all right, and she realizes that it's her grandchild. And she let out a shriek. She started screaming and crying. Was geshen? Oh, semaina kind. It's your own child. Then all of a sudden everything changed. To the other kid, you can say, don't worry about it. Say there, come say there. But all of a sudden it's your kid. You realize your kid is in SARS. Zok Rashi, look at this. 2 lines from the wide. All of a sudden Shlomim becomes yours. When it becomes yours, then, he's very busy. Before, when it was for the Beis HaMikdash, no, he's bringing carbon to Hashem. But he's not so misasik, he doesn't care that much. Now that it's his, he brings it to the nahar, he feeds it, he drinks it, everything is geshmak. Okay, this idea of human nature, when it's yours, all of a sudden it becomes very important, and other people's stuff, not so much. Says the Gemara, Nimtzes beperish hakol tar. Nimtzes beperish hakol tar. If you find this needle inside the kishkis of the animal, inside its waist, it's all tar. Ask the Gemara, where did this animal just come from? It just came from the river. It just drank a lot. So what's inside its intestines? A lot of water. V'neheder peresh v'netami lebasar. So the waste is very liquidy. That water should go ahead and be machshel kabel tuma. It still has a shem mashkin on the water. We're talking about, you're right. The waste is very thick, there's no liquid here. It's dried out. Ravashi Omar, afilu tema beperish rako. No, we can talk about that it's liquid. And this is a svara we had already twice in the sugya. You can't consider this mashka. This is not liquid that has the ability to make basar susceptible to tumah. It's smelly, disgusting. It's already in its kishkas. Save this idea because I had a tremendous Einfeld, maybe later, for how this daf is connected to Chanukah. The inside, the innards of an animal, saruach, the second it comes in saruach. Says the Gemara, Tani Tana Kamei de Rav Sheshes. So Tana, yes. Ishkoyach, I need a drink.
Why is there too much space to star in here?
No, you mean, it's not, you're right, if it's saucer, but it's open. You open up the animal, there's water everywhere. I'm not saying that the water, it's not like a balloon, the water's inside. The water came out, stuff is happening. You're asking me, where did you get water? The problem is, if you're inside the Beis Hamikdash, there's no water that can be matama. Where do you introduce a mashka? Blood is not machshir. Water is not, I'll tell you where. He just went to drink outside in the nar. His stomach is full of water. That water spilled out everywhere. If it's tied up in a balloon and it's kishkis, you're right. It's tumas beis hastarim, tuma blua. But here's a way to get, just like we said yesterday. How did he get the? He came from outside the Beis Hamikdash. He was on a nose, so he came from outside. I'm telling you how he brought water inside the Beis Hamikdash without it being part of the Beis Hamikdash. That's not mashal kabel tuma. There's a way. It's in its kishkis, but once it comes into this kishkis, it's no longer water. Says the Gemara, Tani Tana Kamed Rav Sheshes. There was a Tana, one of these microphones that used to talk in front of the Amoraim, the Tanoim. Sheretz metamis amashkin. Umashkin, I got to show you this chart. Okay, final chart for today, basically for the sugya. Here's the sheretz that's touching water, that's touching a kli, that touches food, that touches liquid. Sheretz to liquid, to kli, to food, to liquid. Each and every one, I'm going to spare you the whole length of Rashi. I just put it here, Bekitzer Nimrod, if you want to look at the chart later. I don't want to be mababel anybody, but that a sheretz makes liquid tamei, that's from a kavachomer, from a kli. That the mashke makes, and this is again chazor of everything we learned, that the mashke makes a kli tamei, that's from the word yitma, not yitame, the way the Torah says it. And that the kli makes the oichel. This is, by the way, a keg, a nice metal keg, geshmak. And then this keg, you're going to ask me, why a keg? Why not the stem? And then the keg is barley, food. And then you, instead of reading yitma, you read it yitame. And then it says yitma twice, yitame. So I learned that food can make liquids, tame. But what do we have here? We have a rishon, sheni, shlishi, revi. 4 levels of tumah. Now, if we go over here, back to our chart, there's only basically 2 levels, Rishon and Sheni, Shlishi maybe in the Truma, Revi in Kachim. Says the Gemara, Sheretz mitam samashkin. So first I have the Sheretz that makes the liquid tummy. Umashkin mitam sakli, and then it makes the kli tummy. Ukli mitam sakli, and the achlam. And the kli touches the food. V'achlam mitam samashkin. V'lamadnu shalosh tumais b'sheretz. So over here I see 3 levels of tumah Ask the Gemara, Hani Arbahin. What are you talking about? I see 4. Rishon, Sheni, Shlish, Revi. Says the Gemara, Goiz Mashkin the Reisha. You need to remove the liquids of the Reisha. So here goes. Rabbi said, here goes. Oy, Vezmir, didn't work. Fine. We're done. So now we have a sheret that touches the metal, the kli. Says the Gemara, Adrabe, go, he's mashing the safe. You know what's happening now, right? We got to take this guy off. Let's take this guy off completely and put him over here, maybe. Fine. So now, why do you remove the mashke from the beginning? Take the mashke off to the end, and you Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi. Perfect. Now you have 3. This guy's blank. Says the Gemara, Lo yashi chondana lo yashi metam kli el Rabbi Yehuda. Check this out. Going back, Chazara. We had 3 shitos. Here's the sheretz touching the mashka, and the mashka touches the food or the kli. And then we said Rabbi Yehuda retracted. And we had a shaila, did he retracted both or did he retract the kli? Kli for sure, right? He retracted. So in Mela we have 0 manda omrim that say that the mashka could be mitama here. Remeir says it can't even be mitama food. And Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say it could only be mitama food but not a kli. So we have no one who says that a mashka could be mitama a kli. So I can't say that a mashka can be mitama kli. Fine. Right? There's no one who says this. Mashka is mitama kli. So Mamela, I need to remove this guy. So I take him off. And it comes over here. Fine. Back over here. Great. And Rabbi Yehuda retracted it. Says the Gemara, you want to remember this? Remember a beer keg. That's why I put a keg here. How does it work, a beer keg? I take the kli first, then I pour in the barley malt, and then I pour in water. That's how I make ingredients. That's how I do it. Memela, I don't put the water first over here. The water comes all the way at the end. And Memela, that's how I remember. You want to remember this? Beer keg. Beer keg, barley, water. Not awesome. Sheret shenimsa batanu. So that's another sugya that we had, remember? If the sheret is within inside a kli, hanging in mid-ear, so the bread becomes a sheni. Why? Because the kli becomes a rishon, and the pas becomes a sheni. And here the Gemara is going to address Noam Fix's question that he asked when we were learning that sugya. Mamish that question. Baruch Hashem, I told him to answer the Gemara. I cheated, I saw it in Rashi, and I told him. Says the Gemara, because the tanur, the kli becomes a tchila, meaning a rishon. Why don't we view the entire kli as if it's full of tumah? The mouse is in there, it spreads its tumah everywhere. Why is it only that you say that the kli received the tumah, but shouldn't it be there? Shouldn't it be hanging out in the kli? Then this bread got the tumah directly from the mouse, not from the kli. It's not. Why do you have to say that the bread touched the kli that touches the mouse? The bread got it from the mouse directly. Why is the bread any different than the kli? Impossible. The Tanya, you call a kelim tamim? Me'avir kli cheres. I would think that if I put another vessel, let's say I put a needle, not a piece of bread, put a needle in here, maybe it should be mikabel tumah. No, it's not. Let's turn to Daf Amud Beis. Amud Loimar. Kol shebetoicha yitma v'samach lei mikol ha'oichel. It says in the pasuk, Kol shebetoicha yitma. Everything inside the kli cheres becomes tamei. V'samach lei, and right away it says mikol ha'oichel, only food. Oichel metamim me'avir kli cheres ve'ein kol ha'kelim metamim me'avir kli cheres. So, what do you see here? The fact that another kli doesn't become tamei, that tells me that the ear space of this kli is not full of tumah. And if the ear space of the kli is not full of tumah, therefore it doesn't impart tumah to food directly. It's a special halacha that the kli becomes tamei, and once the kli becomes tamei, it imparts tumah to something touching it, but not through the ear. Rashi just says here two major halachas that a person and a kli cannot receive tumah. From here you see, they cannot receive tumah, they can only receive tumah from an av hatumah, and not from a rishon. That's what he says. Okay. Fine. Zog the Gemara. What do you say? Oh yeah, sponsorship. The turning of that sponsor, Lili Nishmas, Rucham Chayefma, Aleh Shalom, Bas Reb Doiv Pinchas, Yibatel Chaim Tovim, and Lili Nishmas, Rabbi Chil Shraga ben Avram Alevi Olev Shalom, and Lili Nishmas Menachem Mendel ben Simcha, sponsored by Kalman from the Five Towns, and sponsored by the Fine and Pearl families in the Schus of Refuah Shlema, of Mindel Elka Bas Edel, she should have Refuah Shlema. Rav Chizda Rami Pischa Pischa. So here we go, Rabbi, so put on your seatbelts. These are all very, very simple sugyas, a lot of words, but we've done them and we know them inside out. So, a question from Pesach on Pesach, Umishani, and he answers. The Rishua really say, going back to Daf Yudal Amud Aleph, the first Mishnah of the sugya, did he really say that you could take chametz, that's truma, that is tamei, and burn it together with chametz, that's truma, that's talui, that's only a suffix? Could you burn the two together, even though with your hands you're making one tamei? Reminu Omer Rabbi Yosi Ein Hanina Doim L'Raya. Says Rabbi Yosi, what is the connection to anything that we just learned? Going back to Yudal Amud Aleph, if you could put a piece of meat that's a sheni into the fire together with a piece of meat that's a rishon, okay, you could do that. Or, as we said, a shlishi into the fire with a rishon. Maybe this is not the right picture. The point is, what's the connection? The two pieces of meat are both 100% tamei. They're on different levels of tumah, but they're both tamei. And here's Rabbi Akiva's case one more time. Say goodbye to this case. Rabbi Akiva says you can take oil that's touched by Tful Yom. You guys remember the Tful Yom, the guy with the towel? Touch the oil, so the oil becomes a shlishi. I could put the oil that's a shlishi into avatuma, and by that I'm making the shlishi into a rishon, right? Why is this avatuma? Because it's metal, and metal that touches a av becomes an av. And if it's avatuma and it touches oil, the oil goes down to a rishon. I could take a shlishi and make it a rishon. That's huge. However, don't bring any raya to chametz. Why? Because they're both possible. They're both tamei. Tamei and possible, the same thing. And we'll even agree if you have truma that is tamei, okay, so one is a sheni, one is a rishon, but I put them together. Great, I admit to that. But don't tell me that you could take truma that I don't even know if it's tamei. That's different. So you're telling me that there's no such manda omar, but there is a manda omar that says, Rabbi Yossi says, no, nobody says this. Nobody says you could burn such truma. What do you mean nobody says it? It's in our mission, Daf Yudalid. Rabbi Shua says it. So the answer is, Rabbi Shimon says, our Mishnah that says the Rabbi Shua is matter, that's Rabbi Shimon. So you see how the Gemara, in my opinion, the Gemara is stuck in a whole sugya. We just went through Rabbi Akiva, we just went through Rabbi Chananya Zgan HaKohanim, all under our nose. We asked the question, we said the answer, so we did a chazar on the sugya. The Sanyo, Arbos Shechalis B'Shabbos, Erev Pesach falls out like in our year, our Pesach. It falls out on Shabbos. So what do? We had the sugi also. Mevarim Sakol Mevani Shabbos. You do bir chometz on everything, everything. V'sarvin truma is tmeis tluyos v'tayros. You take the truma that's only tamei, that's only talui. Even we don't know for a fact. Utayros. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Tahir b'fnei atzma, Utluya b'fnei atzma, have to separate them. Utmeya b'fnei atzma. All three separate fires. Omer Reb Shimon, comes Reb Shimon. Here's the Reb Shimon that's Mekel. There's no machlokes. You could take suffix and put it in a fire with tar. Why? Because since there's no cheskas tum on it, again, tar, 100% tar, suffix tame, actually. Put it in one fire, but it's suffix tame, but there's no chazak on it. And Memele, it doesn't look, Rashi says, it doesn't look as if you're burning tame together with tar. As if you're doing it biyadayim. So where is the machlokes? Alat luya v'alat tmeya. Suffix tame with tame. Sher Eliezer oimer tisar zu b'atzma zu b'atzma. V'Rabbi Yeshua oimer. Here's the Rabbi Yeshua that's mekel, and that's like in our Mishnah. Shteim kachas. I could burn both of them together. Why? Because he holds you're not muzar al shmirasa. You're not mechuyev to watch it. It's only a suffix. Suffix you're not mechuyev to watch. That's what he holds. Ask the Gemara, that's very good. It sounds great. Our Mishnah is very mekel because it goes according to Rabbi Yeshua. It goes according to, what do you mean? Our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi is the one that says there's no such person that says it. And all of a sudden, our Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi. Look at the Mishnah. It says the name Rabbi Yossi. It says Gemara, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Meir, this is what Rabbi Yossi meant. I feel Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yeshua the mekel. Even Rabbi Shimon, who's extremely mekel here, ki mekel b'tluyu t'meya. He's only mekel in a case where you have suffix and tame. He never said the case of the Mishnah where you're taking something that's 100% tar with something that's 100% tame. That they never said. A suffix with 100% fine, but not 100% tar and 100% tame and put them in one fire. That he never said. That's what Rabbi Yossi was trying to say. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, Rami Truma, Pischo Mishani. He had a question from regular truma from all year round to the Pesach truma. Did Rabbi Yeshua really say they could burn tar and tamei erev Pesach? Again, a sugi that we had. You have a barrel of wine that is truma, and it developed a suffix. We don't know that somebody that's tamei touched it or not. Remember, I didn't pull it out, but remember the pasuk. Mishmeres Trumo Isai is a kri or ksiv. Do we read it plural or singular? Are you mechuyev to watch something that has a suffix or not? Maybe only truma that you know for sure that it's truma, you're mechuyev to watch. If you say it's plural, Trumo Isai. 2. Even truma that you have a suffix on, you're mechuyev to watch. That was that sugya. Chavish Truma Shenoy was suffix tuma. Rabbi Eliezer Oimer Hoisu Munachas b'Makom Aturfa. If it was in a hefker place. He holds you have a chiyuv to watch it. If it was uncovered, cover it. And Rishua says the opposite. Put it in a hefker place. Let somebody that's tummy touch it. And then what? I'll know what to do with it. I'll burn it. I'm not mechuyev to watch it. So let somebody touch it. What does it say here though? Grama in biodayim loy. It says, I could uncover it. That doesn't mean I made a tummy. That means I allow somebody else to come along and by mistake elbow it and make a tummy. That's a grama. But I never said that you could take tahar and put it in a fire with tummy. Where did I say that? So that's, and in our Mishnah it says mefurish, that biyodayim. I could take it with my hands, put it into the fire. Take tahar truma, put it into the fire. Isn't that a contradiction? Over here we're saying you can't do a biyodayim. You can only do a grama. So once again, the Gemara is stuck in a whole nother sugi here, under our nose, as a chazar, I believe. And the answer is simple. This is Reb Shimon, according to Rabbi Yeshua, that says it's okay, you could do biyadayim. And this is Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yeshua, that says you can't. Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Truma, Truma, Mishani. Rabbi Lazar had a kasha, contradiction. Yom, Rabbi Yeshua, Gromei and biyadayim loy. Did Rabbi Yeshua really say that you could do so, you could have truma that you have a suffix, achieve pure tuma, but not biyadayim, v'reminu, chavishel truma, shenishbro b'gasel yoina. Another sugi we had. Here we go. You have 2 vats, the wine press. You have the upper one and the lower one, and there's a barrel of truma on top. There were grapes that are chulin tamei on the bottom. Tamei wine on the bottom. What's going to happen is this sprung a leak, and the truma is leaking down, and if it hits the bottom, you can't drink the bottom one and you can't drink the top one. The top one you can't drink because it's truma that just became tamei by touching the bottom. The bottom one you can't drink because it's tamei. Nothing you can do about it. So Memela, what's the halacha? The bottom one is tamei. If you can run home and get a vessel that's tar and save this amount from $100,000 worth of wine, all you could save is this. Go ahead and save a revius, take a $100,000 loss, and save your tiny little bit of wine. That's the halacha. Why? Because you're not allowed to be metama truma biyadayim. You're not allowed to do so with your hands. V'im lav, but if you can't even save this amount, then we allow you to start saving your property. Rebbe Lezer says no, even in that case, let it be destroyed. You cannot. If I catch wine, I'm making it tamei. And what am I doing? I'm saving the whole bottom vat. But if I don't catch it, it's going to drip into the bottom and become tamei anyway. Your seichel immediately starts working like that. You start having a moira heter. Akash Baruch is not going to be upset at me. Who cares? In 2 seconds from now, it's going to be tamei. No. You cannot do so with your hands. No, you could be metamim biyad. So over here you see, you could do it with your own hands. And before you said you could only do a grama, a cause, but you can't do it with your hands. And we said the pshat is because you're losing a lot of money, monetary loss. And then we asked the question, but you're going to have to do another fire, and a bonfire costs money. It costs 35 cents. $100,000. For that we allow more. I never said that you could, to not to lose 35 cents. I'm not going to allow you to do this. How do I know this halacha? This we didn't have, but it's basically the same thing. The same exact case, but rather than having a barrel of wine, insert a barrel of oil. What's the difference? Oil is not edible. Oil is more for lighting. So, what's the pshat? Even if it goes down over here, truma tmeya, I could use it to burn. That's the pshat. So it's not a complete loss. Yes, I can no longer eat it in my salad, which is very valuable. Look, people sell that 100% oil stuff, and they're constantly putting in their salads and their food. You can't do that. However, I can still light it for menorah. That's lower. Below this tamei. If he could save it, save it. So what do you tell me? There's some sort of lower level usage called lighting. You know what? There's a lower level usage called perfume. Take the wine, spray it around. Take it into one of those squirty bottles. Spray it, shmaka aroma of wine. What are you going to tell me? That it's not considered anything. Shtusam. No, it's not worth anything. I'm telling you, says Rebbe Chia, if you're going to buy wine, buy the cheap one for a selah. And when it comes to perfume, I want you to buy perfume for 2 selah. Why? Because it's worth something. Perfume is something. Don't tell me perfume is nothing. So how does this tie into Hanukkah? Amazing. The Gemara tells us that perfume is more valuable than wine. Bismanenu also. Perfume costs a lot more than wine per ounce. You buy a little bottle, it costs $200. So I want to ask you a question. I'm thinking to myself, what is the smelliest place on earth? Smelliest, most disgusting place on earth? Perhaps It's the intestines of a whale. How could there be something smellier than that? If you ever walk by Mei Sharim, past the fish store, the smell, the stench, times that by 1,000, the thousands of pounds of squid and all that stuff that it eats. Yet, you're not going to believe this. One of the most expensive items that you could purchase today is whale vomit. They produce perfume from whale vomit. So maybe that's the connection. That's Hanukkah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to show us that you could take the darkest of the dark, the smelliest of the smelly, and make it the most valuable item in the world. That's Hanukkah. The reverse. A lot of us, we're in a matzav, in a marish chayra, we're in a deep, dark place. In a second, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take that deep place and raise you up to the highest of the highest levels, to the lightest of the light. From whale vomit till, what is it called? From whale smell to whale vomit. I think it's called ambergris, something like that. Some lashon. But anyways, it's Muster Haskel of Chanukah. Zog the Gemara. So the Gemara says, I'll tell you why. Yeah, you're right. You could use wine for perfume, whatever. But we're talking about b'chadash. It's not aged wine. A non-aged wine, brand new wine, doesn't smell good. Ask the Gemara, so wait a year. So it doesn't have to smell good now, but right now it has the value. Why can't you save it? Also, you're going to save it and you're going to wait a year. You know what's going to happen through the year. You're going to forget about it. You're going to drink it at the end. Says Gemara, the same problem you have with the oil. Says the Gemara, the Rami lay b'kli mos. We have to say that he puts it in a disgusting kli. He's not going to come to drink it. He's only going to light it. And that you're allowed. Says Gemara, Rami lay b'kli mos. So let him put the wine in a disgusting kli. Says Gemara, Lazilov kabayle b'kli mos Rami lay. Doesn't make any sense what you're saying. He wants it for perfume, and what you're going to tell, and he's going to put it into a disgusting kli. It's a contradiction. Should we go weiter? Okay, one more thing. That itself is a machloikis tanoim. If we're concerned about that it's going to you're going to eventually come to use it by mistake. The barrel of wine of truma that became tomei. Spill it out immediately. No, use it for perfume. Comes along and he says, I'll figure this one out. If you stop here, remember we learned about Yavai Hashlishi V'Achriya B'Neim. We learned this exact thing in our sugya. When do we say Yavai Hashlishi V'Achriya B'Neim? We said this. When the third one talks about what the first and second person are talking about, and he says, I'm Achriya like this one. But if he comes up with his own shtikul Torah, that's not Yavai Hashlishi. Ani Achriya. I'm going to decide here. If you're in the field, you're not using a perfume, spill it out right away. But in the house, then you should use it for perfume. If it's new, like we said before, the difference is new or no. New, what are you going to wait a year? Throw it out. Oh, so here you see this idea that if it's new, takala, not takala. And if it's old, no, it's not takala. I can use it right now for perfume. You're not considered a machriya because they never mentioned anything about sada, not sada, yashin. So you can't come in and add words and say a machriya. Rabbi Isai, have a wonderful Chanukah, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful Shabbos. Yishar koyach. Shia ma, Lois ma. Good Shabbos, a good Chanukah.
Moti Shabbos 7:30.
7:50. I don't know. What are we gonna do? Change it for Chanukah?
7:30.
Yeah, 7:30 sounds right, Noam. He's mask. Okay, 7:30. 7:30. Thank you, Yeshua. Thanks.
Lighting also.
MDY. 7:30. MDY.
Never look out the new shit that came out.
The new what? What came out? Ah, Oracle. I don't know what happened. Gary told me that, okay, we'll talk about it a different time. Shkoyach, Freilichen Chanukah, Freilichen Chanukah. Oh, you see? Rabbi Menachem, Yishkoyach. I don't know if you're allowed to be Makar before Shachris. That's his taina. But Kiruv. I'm not saying Kiruv. I'm saying it's part of the Torah. It's part of the shiur. Part of the shiur. This is what the Olam needs. This is what we get. What?
No, this yom they put tefillin, menorah, shokalulav, and they sit in the sukkah. They kind of everything.
Not a problem. You're talking to a bunch of people that are going to bed after.
Listen, I need you. Listen, I just heard a beautiful voice from the musician Magid. Belly, you like this from last night's daf, which we're going to link tomorrow.
You know the musician Magid was a Talmud by?
Yeah, he's sitting right behind me. You don't see him?
Who was he a Talmud by? No. He was his Rebbe, but who was he a Talmud by before he went to the Baal Shem Tov?
Oh, I don't know. You gotta tell me that.
I don't know. Well, that's Rabbi Torsky, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was a Talmud by Bnei Yeshua.
Oh,
He lived in the Bnei Yeshua's town.
oh, but where's he?
Huh.
Really, in regards to the story that you shared today in the middle of the shiur, I want to share one back.
What, you were listening actually during the shiur time?
The whole way, the whole time.
There's a Hanukkah nace.
One night. The early 1950s, my grandmother was in her ninth month pregnant with my mom, and my uncle was probably 2 years old and he was playing in the front yard. My grandmother was sitting on the stoop, and he tripped and fell. And my grandmother, in her ninth month, ran down like a meshugana down the whole flight of stairs from the stoop to go pick up her son that had fallen on the floor. The Rebbe happened to use that was the street that he passed walking from his home to 770. And he witnessed it happen. After Mincha, he called over my grandfather, and he told my grandfather he should please give a message to his wife that a woman in her condition, it's not safe for her to run like that. And as we know, that a malach puts a pillow under every child that falls, there's no reason to rush.
Shomer P'sayim Hashem.
So when you said that story today, that's the story that I remembered. With the Rebbe telling my grandma
Wow.
not to run down the
Do they have other stories because he walked there so often? Do they have a lot of stories from seeing him and different interactions?
I shared in the past the story
With the Shachar, no? That was your story? Yeah.
He would nod his head to the two Yidden that would wish him good morning, and to the mailman he would say good morning.
Yes, and I know who that story happened with.
I know who that happened with too. I know the two brothers. They're gone. They're no longer. They passed on. But
You're talking about he had the butcher shop.
no, the butcher shop. That was my Zayda. That's the story with my grandmother and my grandfather.
No, the butcher shop was Chazan Ben Tzia Miller's father used to have a butcher shop there. They bought it off years later.
That's not who it happened with. It happened with two elderly bachelor Korea War veterans They weren't from, and their last name was Rosenberger, and they lived up in the street across the street from the Rebbe.
So this is the story that I heard from his grandson. He's the guy in Bethel, Eli Miller, and he says it like this. He said that every morning the Rebbe used to leave 770. He used to walk down Kingston Avenue and go visit his mother. And right down that street was the old butcher shop. There was a butcher shop, and he used Aaron Miller, right? And he used to nod his head to Rabbi Aaron Miller. He was ready there because he knew him already. You know, for many years he was a moyel, and he used to come to 770 and do bris milas there, and he knew him. Anyways, one day the Rebbe was walking down the street, and there was a shofar that walked down, and the Rebbe gave him his hand. And he didn't even look at the Rabbi Aaron Miller. The next day, he's standing outside. He sees the Rebbe coming. He says, "My hi, what's this?" He says, "You see me all the time, and you nod your head. Or the shofar, you give the hand." He says, "Listen, in my Laban, I never nodded my head to a non-Jew." Yeah, and they say that's the story now. So maybe you say it's someone else, but this is what he told me. Says it all the time.
That shiur,
Wow.
Eli Miller's the gabbai. That's my father's shiur. My father's the Rav.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Very nice.
Who's speaking here?
Well, Yisrael Shalinsky, do you daven in Reb Chaim Snow's father's shul?
Yeah, I know. I was there. I davened in the morning, 8 o'clock.
Where's the phone?
His father was on the Zoom.
Your phone is Rabbi Snow?
Yeah, he was in the Ami magazine last week.
He's one of my very, very close rebellions.
Really?
Wow. He came to my kids' simchas. He spoke at my kids' Sheva Brachas. Very, very chosher guy. I don't have to tell you that, but wow.
Yisrael, Yisrael, you understand that Chaim Snow is the one that edited your video.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. This is a Nachman Zelda story.
We gotta talk.
Oh, this is a Nachman Zelda story.
Eli, I've been texting you 3 weeks ago, back and forth. I just did not put you with the IFL.
Last week's Ami magazine, so that had that article about the shiur. My father wrote an article about Daf Yomi in that article, in that magazine last week.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was by somebody's house, and it's different between the American version and the Israeli version. The Israeli version is on page 44, but in the American version it's on page 50 because it's different.
Yeah, we noticed that our article was also off by 40 pages because of the advertisements. Yeah.
Rebelli, I just wanted to tell you from yesterday's daf that I heard tonight, it said from Mazritcha Magid.
Oh, going back to that, yeah, they rudely interrupted you. Yeah.
No, it's okay. The Kaf Achas Asora Zoh of Malay Torah, so the Mazritcha Magid says that Kaf Achas Asora